Welcome back to Spearfish Coffee Roasters podcast. A couple knuckleheads talking about life and coffee. And today, you've heard in the past that we were talking a little bit about coffee is a crop. Coffee is a world product, and there's more to it than sometimes we think of. And so today we actually have Dylan from Cafe Imports joining us on today. So thanks for coming on, Dylan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hello, Dylan.
Happy to be here.
So I
rehearsed
wanted to talk,
that, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. We just wanted to talk a little bit more about coffee. We were just telling on our last couple episodes, just how coffee is more than just, something that comes out of a machine. There's a whole process behind it. And there's a lot kind of going in the world, in the market right now with coffee, and a lot happening worldwide. And so we wanted to just have you on and get maybe a little more in-depth education from you. And so Dylan, is the education guy at Cafe Imports. We work with Cafe Imports. That's where we get all our coffee. And so we wanted to have Dylan on to bring a little more education to all of us about what goes on from seed to cup.
And I want to make a premise is like, I think with everything going on with where things come from, everything that's recording this call and how we're dressed has either been mined or grown. It's either been drilled in a hole and oil came out, or they grew cotton, or metal was done for the electronics. Everything comes from it somewhere. It's either mined or it's grown, and the bean is grown. The ultimate bean is grown.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of our green buyers, Omar, he often says coffee is an extractive industry, and we are absolutely mindful of that, right? Like we are going somewhere, and whether it be, the product or the information we're gathering about the product and traceability things, we are extracting that information, we are in that product and importing it and distributing it to roasters. And for us, we are, as an importer, positioned in a unique place where we serve both ends of the industry. And I think that's like the best part of working for an importer is you have an opportunity to not only, of course, serve roasters, sell coffee, provide information, but you're also serving roasters. And we are constantly evaluating, reevaluating, and trying to implement, whether it is projects or whether it is new standards that we are having like dialogues about in terms of how we are buying coffee. There's constant kind of work going on the origin side and services we're trying to offer. The same way we want to be a good customer service, to roasters that we work with as well. All right.
Yeah.
So you want to be a good buyer.
We want to be a good buyer, 100%.
You want to be the buyer of choice. If I'm a farmer, when I see Dylan, I go, I love Dylan. I'm gonna give him the best stuff.
Exactly. It is a relationship. It is like, no matter what, especially in specialty coffee, we're not buying futures contracts on a C market, on a commodities market. We are meeting people face to face, and we are trying to build trust with people ultimately, right? Those are the kind of people you want to work with, people you trust. And for us, trustworthy means we are going to be very honest about, what we're tasting and how we interpret that, and trying to calibrate that language. Our sensory team spends a lot of time there. And we are not price makers, we're price takers. And we also really focus on our stratified buying. Like that's our kind of program to where coffee can kind of go into three buckets, right? Whether it's like a large regional workhorse, maybe a community or a more farm select lot, to the highest grade micro lot possible, right? There's these different buckets that can go in, but we would rather not just go somewhere, take the best possible coffee available and leave everything else, for them to figure out and sell to a local market, a huge exporter in the area. We want to find a way to buy like as much coffee as possible from every single producer that we're
Sure.
working with, and that's part of being a good partner too.
That's a I would love you, as a customer. You buy everything, not just the
Yeah,
the
exactly.
best cherries, but all
Right.
the entire production. What I have like a third question now, but the first question is, how often do you or your team travel?
That's a great question. So we have 6 green buyers that are kind of divided up amongst the world. I mean, we purchased from over 26 countries, and we've added like 3 in the past 2 years: Venezuela, Bolivia, um, Vietnam. Uh, so we're constantly kind of expanding, but it's only 6 people who are responsible for all the green buying throughout those countries. And I mean, it's kind of a year round work, right? So they are basically always traveling, our green
Mm.
buyers.
Okay,
They are constantly traveling,
it's a
and
it's a lifestyle. Then you're saying it's not like once a
it is.
quarter; it's once a month.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like, for example, Piero, he's been working very, very hard in Indonesia lately, and he basically lived there for 2 months. Claudia, our East Africa green buyer, when it's time for Kenya, Kenya sells coffee through an auction system. It's the only country that does an auction system. She goes
Mhm.
and she lives in Nairobi for a month to 2months, cupping every single
Wow,
coffee.
it's
Um,
passion.
yeah, so they are constantly on the road. Um, and I'm lucky enough, I go on 2 or 3 trips a year, week long. But yeah, our green buyers, that is what they do.
As a customer, maybe not the best customer, but a customer, do we can we have an opportunity to go with you on trips or meet them in country?
Hmm. Absolutely. That's very much
Okay.
kind of, if you ask, let's find a way to make it happen. So
Oh,
we
okay.
use pre-COVID, we did a lot of trips, like 4 to 6 a year, 20 people. Let's all go get a bus and go travel around somewhere. We still do a yearly trip to Costa Rica. It's a Costa Rica 101. It's kind of more educational. It's a great opportunity for somebody who's never been to a farm to go and learn and see a lot very, very quickly, because it's so easy to get around and we have an office there.
Mm.
But yeah, that invitation is basically always open. Like, if you want to go somewhere, there's a program that you love the coffee of, and you just want to go meet them, and like, kind of go start make a connection. We are connectors of those dots. Like I said, we serve both sides, and
Sure.
one of the most fun things to do is connect the dots between the
A
buyer and
question.
seller.
Another question I have is, you had asked us before we started about who we are, and one of the things that Tristan and I like is organic, and I'm in manufacturing and on the other side of my life, and so fair trade's important to us. So FTO coffee is what we buy, and we went to Coffee Fest in LA and we asked a lot of questions and sucking up information. And I think we were talking to Good Boy Bob Coffee,
Hmm.
and their roaster, and he was saying they don't use the FTO. They actually go to the farms and build, so they know, even though it might not be stamped, because it is a burden for the farmer, right? Um, it's a burden for the farmer to do those extra things. Is there a benefit to go to a farm and, like, no, even though it's not FTO stamped, that the people are happy, that they're not using poison? Have you seen that on the roasting side? Like, how do you translate like that to your customer? Or is it just for us? Is it just
Hmm.
for me and Tristan? Or do you think customers actually care at the end of the day? Is it good coffee or not good coffee? What's your opinion on that FTF? And then on the second question to that is, there's a coffee we like in Papua New Guinea that is fair trade organic, and this past year they didn't get their stamp
Hmm.
or whatever they're supposed to have gotten, but they are technically, spiritually
Hmm.
that. Okay,
Hmm.
two questions in one. I'll shut up.
No, I'm with you. This is always an interesting topic in coffee because of where it's grown,
Well, it was a
right?
huge debate too. Like when we went to Coffee Fest, it was not. It was like a whole forum of all these
Hmm.
roasters just going at it. Like, no, it is. It isn't. It is. It isn't. So yeah.
Is it important to the customer? Like, yes, there's no doubt in today's day and age, when we go to a grocery store, on certain foods, we are particular about saying that USDA organic or whatever stamp it is, right? But a lot of those farms, are far different and in a far different place than a coffee farm, right? If a coffee farmer has 1.5 hectares and all of their cherry goes to like maybe a cooperative or an exporter, um, they may or may not be breaking even, and they absolutely do not have the extra funds to get that stamp. At the same time, they might not even be purchasing chemical fertilizer, right, and even using that. For example, Bolivia that I talked about earlier, it's like deeply ingrained in the culture and the religion to not cut down native trees. And they just recently got bird friendly certified, but they've been following these practices for generations.
Sure.
Or Las Lajas in Costa Rica, they used to be certified and they're no longer certified. But we just put out a video. It's like a mini documentary on them, and they talk about how 50 years ago there's no such thing as USDA organic, but they completely renovated how they farmed. They replanted the forest basically, because they saw that the monocropping was basically killing the earth, right? And so it was a thing about, if we're not respecting the earth, then we're not respecting our workers, and if we're not respecting our workers, this cycle, right? Like,
Hmm.
you can't just do one thing or have one stamp and say I'm doing it right. It's the entire system, and that's a big thing with
Right.
transparency, right? For a lot of these places, like you could spend a ton of money on a cup of coffee or like a micro lot, but how can you guarantee that the workers are paid fairly, right? Unless you go
Right.
there, and you see that kind of thing versus another less expensive coffee, but the workers are paid way more. Like, who's to say what's actually better? And so there's so many more actors within coffee, before it is even ever exported. Everybody has costs. Everybody has, um, you know, things they have to take care of for their business.
Hmm.
But at the same time, coffee is about trust, right? Like I go back to
Right.
that earlier. Like you can't really put a stamp on that. And so, because this industry is structured in the way that it is, it is, I think, very heavily dependent on, like, for us, we are always going there. We're always meeting the
Hmm.
people. We have an impact standards that we both sign that kind of outline the basic things of like, this is how we work, this is how you work, and we're both committing to this and recognizing that in each other. But it's really like you want to work with people you trust. And the best way to find that out is to actually get to know them and go see their operations. So I don't know if that
Right.
answered your question, because I would never say that organic and fair trade and bird friendly are bad. Um, but they also like aren't the complete answer
Right.
to the problems that
It's so
the
so
world
for a
faces.
consumer,
Hmm.
it's a easy fix at a grocery shelf. It says FTO, I'll trust it,
Hmm.
but the farm itself may be getting screwed, whereas a non-FTO product may actually have higher standards. Well, at minimum, may treat their employees better, and is organic because they don't use anything for and no synthetic fertilizer to grow the crop. So
Right.
it so how do other brands that believe in fair trade, whether it's approved or not, and believe in organic, whether it's stamped or not, how do they transmit that information? Not so much on the web, but in a grocery store setting. Even coffee shop, you could talk to the owner and get that over with. You know, online you have a lot of pages to write. How do you have you? What have you seen people do on the shelf?
Hmm.
So Tristan and I go to one of your places. Tristan doesn't like to fly, so I'll go. And I go with you to Guatemala, and we find the bean weed that we like, but it's not FTO, and they treat their people better. They have better growing habits. They mix the crops up so they're not killing the earth. How do I tell my customer that on the store shelf?
Yeah, it's no, I'm not necessarily. It's a good question. I think for customers, like that's a pretty different question than, like, as an importer, I work, with a roaster more. So then how does the roaster communicate this to the customer?
Sure.
I think that's where that traceability information comes into play, right? A lot of what grabs a customer's attention anyway is initially the branding, or the
Hmm.
words they see or the seals on the bag, right? More superficial things until they become your customer and there's a dialogue between that customer and the baristas or whoever it might be in the roastery that can start to teach them. Maybe they have that flavor experience that's like, well, this is different, and then they start to actually ask about it. But I think in the case of like we're not putting FTO on the bag, but you know what this coffee is. That's where traceability information does come into play. There's a name, there's like a process, variety, all the stuff we tend to put on a bag. But finding maybe unique ways to kind of tell that story, innovative ways to market that story to the customer is probably the next biggest thing, right? Alongside the experience they just have inside of your roastery and them trusting you as being,
Yeah.
a great part of their community.
Well, and you
Right.
just kind of touched on like why we got into coffee. One, we call ourselves a couple knuckleheads that just want good coffee. That's a reality.
Mm-hmm.
I started roasting in college, and just like you said, the taste in the cup of fresh coffee comparatively to store bought coffee was just it got me. That's what
Mm-hmm.
changed it. I was like, oh man, like coffee can taste this good. That's what started the whole journey into where we're at today. But you also mentioned, all the fluff on the bag of all these different kinds of roasteries or not, and that's kind of why we got in it. Like our mentality is we just have a brown bag and with the label on it. And I think we were talking earlier, coffee is marketed just beyond. There's a lot of misconceptions because of all the marketing silliness,
Mm-hmm.
and it's about just being raw and real and letting people know actually the whole process involved. And I think you know being it's getting better, and I'm sure you're seeing it getting better, but like you go back 30 years and I feel like a lot of the farmers in coffee just got the shaft, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get any acknowledgement of what they did to get this coffee here. And I feel like we're definitely doing a better job today as in those terms, but I love how coffee is all about relationship building and trust, and like you said about that, and we love people. That's Spearfish Coffee Roasters. We love people, and we love that we have a good importer like you guys that we can trust, that we know like you guys are bringing us a good crop, and you are caring for the people on the other end as well. You're caring for the farmers. You're making sure that both parties are treated equally, and with that does come a price, and that's okay because we know that all the farmers we're buying from, they're getting a fair pay, and we know you're getting us a good product, and they're growing a good product. And so it's recognizing the whole process. It's a whole process, and we love that. We
But
just want to
I
help that.
think what I heard Dylan say is there's a like with the FT with the fair trade part of it, at least they're doing a fair wage, which may be the low spectrum, but the other farm may be giving a better wage. It's not fair trade because of some paperwork. Am I correct, Dylan, on that?
Yeah, yeah, you'll see every situation. I mean, fair trade is a
Hmm.
guaranteed price over the C market. And so, um, but even there is like producer one versus producer two. If producer one brings his harvest, to that cooperative early and the C market is kind of low, and then three
Hmm.
months later, producer two brings their lot, and the C market's all of a sudden really high, it jumps 15 cents. Those two producers are likely getting paid different, right? So it's not even just like you can't
Wow.
say like this is just what happens for fair trade. This is what you always get,
Hmm.
this level. And then if you're at another certification, you're always at this level, right? It's so dynamic. And that's the other really difficult thing with coffee. And that's again where, as an importer or a specialty roaster, we're going and making these relationships. A lot of times, the premium that we are paying for a specialty coffee is going to be over what fair trade is, or they're getting their fair trade plus whatever premium we are offering,
Oh,
right?
really?
So it's like we're not just trying to go and find the cheapest available, but there's very much a dialogue about like where's the market at, what certifications do you have, what do we want for our customers, right? Like there's more than cup score and certifications that go into what makes a coffee valuable.
Buyer of
right?
choice. You want to be the buyer of choice for that farm.
100%. And we know what our customers value. And, if it's produced all by women, or like there's so many things that add value to a coffee. And so you can't really just put like a number and a certification on it. It's far more dynamic than that. And there's a lot of different parties you could be buying coffee from, right? You can maybe be buying coffee from a single producer. You could be buying from a producer-owned cooperative or association, or you could be buying from a public or a private exporter slash supplier. Like there's all these different kinds of parties and structures within different countries. And I think that's the other difficult thing that is like, it's so hard to explain with coffee is every country's structure is different, and the coffee might exchange way more hands than you'd ever think. And sometimes it's impossible to trace back, like if you're paying an exporter, it's impossible to trace back what that producer was actually paid, because it took 1,000 producers to create that lot of coffee, right? In some cases, it is impossible to know. But it's now, do you trust that company or that entity? So,
right.
All this to say is like usually these larger entities, they will tend to have the certifications, while those smaller individual producers may not. But who's to say, or who knows what the practices are between the actual two producers when you kind of get to the root of where that coffee came from?
Is there a trend? So I probably will never go away, right? Free trade and organic certification, because there's the grocery store, which is a hard story to tell. But do you see a trend in specialty roasters that have the ability to tell long stories, that the FTO, whether it's the organic by itself or free trade, is waning? It will never go away, but waning as a I have to have it.
I don't know. Are you saying
By the way,
for producers
this is
or
the debate
for roasters?
Tris and I are going through ourselves. Like, what do we do? Do we stay pure as a snow? But what is really pure?
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, fair trade just increased their premium for Robusta and Arabica. Plus the market's been pretty crazy, but it's extremely high right now, which is good for producers in some ways, right? Making more money. As far as trends in how many roasters or the volume of coffee that is being purchased that is certified versus not, I'm not sure on those numbers right now. I'm sure that they're like in the specialty coffee transaction reports that are put out every year. There might be data on that, but I'm not sure what the trend is, and I don't feel like I personally have a great temperature on that. I do know we are intentionally sourcing coffees that are and are not every year, right? Like we
intentionally both.
Yeah, like there are, and there's certain cooperatives or associations we work with that step one for them kind of differentiating themselves and the producers that were part of that cooperative was getting certified. Like we are a cooperative now. Through collective action, we have the funds to get certified and to get all these producers certified who are part of this cooperative, right? And that was kind of step one. Let's get that premium, right? Then let's, use that premium and reinvest back into the farms and start doing things better and better and better, and let it slowly build year over year until they're producing really nice coffees in an area that might have not been producing specialty coffee before, right? And so I think those certifications, especially when it comes to collective action, can be really powerful for like an entire community, especially a community where the producers aren't producing a ton of coffee and they're all contributing it, to an association together, right? I think of Rwanda is one place where we often have fair trade, or Nicaragua, right? And these are areas where it's producers on very small plots of land. They're harvesting everything off their trees, contributing it to their association, but they're all certified together, right? So in that situation, it's very beneficial for the community, for sure.
For sure.
So
Dylan, you've been with Cafe Imports how long?
I've been with Cafe Imports for 3 years now, a little over 3 years.
Awesome. Okay. And you're the education guy there, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. So education guy at Cafe Imports. We work with Cafe Imports to buy all our beans. So what are a couple things that you feel like people there's either misconceptions or you believe people should know from an education standpoint from where you're at?
That's a really great question. Things I think people should know.
Because like just thinking like there's a lot of misconceptions out there, and like I was just writing a blog the other day about the whole idea of put coffee in a freezer or a fridge or keep it
mm,
stored. There's a lot of marketing, a lot of misconceptions, a lot of things unknown about coffee
hmm
that um that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, is just help
Yeah.
people understand a little more about the process.
I think the biggest one that comes to mind for me, like in the moment, is has to do with the fact that Cafe Arabica, the coffee we are drinking the most of, the species we are drinking the most of,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is like specialty coffee is made up of pretty much all Arabica. It is a hybridized species between Robusta and Eugenoides. And that hybridization didn't happen in the grand scheme of things that long ago. And for
Mm-hmm.
that reason, you know, Arabica was growing in Ethiopia for a very long time. And then maybe just one or two plants make its way out to Yemen and then eventually to India, and then Indonesia and then over to the Americas, right? Like, um, basically, coffee is being grown off a very limited gene pool. And because it's so young and has such a limited gene pool, it adapts. It's not adapting quickly enough to the changes that producers are seeing where they grow coffee, right? Due to climate change. Um, and particularly in the tropics, climate change is really really affecting people because coffee relies on a steady rainy season and a steady dry season. That's basically gone away in a lot of places. Like Colombia, for example, they're harvesting year round at this point. Like trees are flowering and then getting fruit all of a sudden, because the rain is so inconsistent. If it rains during the dry season when you're supposed to be harvesting coffee, those cherries fill with moisture, they burst, they fall to the ground, you're losing parts of your harvest, right? So I think, that's a big string of thoughts, right? But coffee
Mm-hmm.
is undergoing a lot of challenges, in that regard, and I think there's obviously the misconception that coffee is just like highly accessible. We should always have it, and so
Right.
we're not super willing to pay for it. And I think we're going to run into an era soon where coffee is going to become more of a luxury, but the great coffees we're drinking now are like luxury items in a way, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
we're at the best era there's ever been for drinking coffee. There's phenomenal coffee. And so I think that kind of like willingness to pay more, but also being kind of like conscious of why we need to pay more and why we need to ensure producers
Right.
are making a
Right.
profit, is really important. But um,
Well, and that's what I love you on here, just sharing a little bit about just cafe imports and your journey and just kind of the process of buying coffee, because what you hit on, like, it's not okay. You see, this price per pound or this price per 12 ounce, and you might be like, oh my goodness.
mhm,
But in reality, when you're working with cafe imports, you guys are working with cooperatives or farmers to better their lifestyle, if not the country itself.
mhm,
That's huge.
mhm,
And why not fork out, a couple, $2, $3 more for your 12 ounces of coffee if it's life changing. And that's what's awesome about coffee is it's worldwide. It's bringing people together, but it's also changing lives too.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a huge part. Like to our absolute best ability, we will try and discover like what is the cost of living and the cost of production for that area, by working with whoever we're buying those coffees through, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and try to ensure like to the absolute best that we can that we are paying a price and that price is getting fairly delivered back to the producers, and then rewarding anything extra that comes through premiums, right? Like everybody has to make a profit to function as a
Yep.
business. And I think often importers are seen, as a bad guy, and if a roaster can, they should just go buy direct. But I think there's other things that importers do that isn't seen as much. Many services they can offer,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just because there's more capital we have to work with. Like even financing, is a huge thing that we can offer, certain groups, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
to help a producer, you know, get through cultivation season to harvest season, and be paid, right? Like producers are working year
Right.
round and paid almost once per year, at least if coffee is their focus, right? And so when the market is as volatile as it is, when logistics and fertilizer is as volatile as it is, being able to kind of address the moment in the moment, is something that we are very proud to do through our green buyers. That's why they constantly travel. And we try and be as quick as absolutely possible with payment, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
day we are invoiced, let's pay for that coffee. Nobody's waiting
Sure.
around here, because
Buyer of choice.
it is very, very important that they trust us. Exactly, buyer choice. They have to trust us,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what it comes down to: is what does it look like to be a good importer of the coffee you're exporting, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
You answered one question I had in my brain about the financing you offer. Then, do you offer anything else that you like you don't brag about, like other than financing, like a grant, or you help them with the government, or it's financing and being a good buyer? Those are the two main ways.
I mean, there's
Like,
lots
do you
of different.
consult? Do you like give 20 hours a month that you could charge $1,000 for, but you gets given away? Like, what else do you guys do?
I mean, because our green buyers are constantly there and oftentimes friends with these people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, um, there's a lot of passion from our side in seeing these places develop. Like, we don't always see ourselves as just a coffee buyer, but a coffee developer, right? So how can we partner with this
Oh,
cooperative or this exporter or this group of producers? Like,
Mm-hmm.
let's come together and find a way to kind of structure this next year, to make it as profitable as absolutely possible for them, and then to help us get a product that we can introduce to our customers that's phenomenal, right? Like, if we can get a coffee in larger amounts that's really, really good, that's more people we get to share it with on this side of the world, right? And so,
Mm-hmm.
we are constantly doing projects, or helping fund programs, or saying, like, you know if a group is wanting to build schools in their area, all right, well, this portion of coffee is getting a premium that is going to that, right? And so then the burden of responsibility is on us to cover that premium and how we sell the coffee, right? And finding roasters like, hey, this coffee is great and it's doing this, right? And roasters like to be a
Mm-hmm.
part of that too. So there's tons of programs, that we try to support, often through premiums, and then, yeah, trying to get these groups together and find new ways, to buy coffee from them, ways that are
Mm-hmm.
right.
beneficial for everybody.
And that coffee, that coffee in particular, the example, the one you gave about it, it's the premium is going to build a education
Hmm.
system or whatever benefit. That coffee may not, as an example, may not be FTO. It may just be great coffee, farmed great, and it's blessing a community.
Correct. Yeah.
That's an
Yeah.
example of you don't put that on. Could I actually buy beans from you only that help schools? That could be an actual certified school builder. That could be an actual. No, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if we can put certified school builder on it, but I mean, in a way, you
I had
can.
a
Yeah.
question about farming.
Yeah.
What is the most common, or the top three, or is only one when they have the mixed fields or the mixed crop? I guess is it an orchard? Is it called actually? What's the cherry field called? Orchard?
Are you meaning like multiple things on one farm? Or I'm sorry, rephrase one
Yeah,
more
well,
time.
what is as a dumb question for you? What's a bunch of coffee bean plants called? Is that an orchard or is that a
Just
farm?
farm. Yeah. It'll be different
Okay,
depending on where you are, but
and so yeah, what's top five, or is only one crop that's planted among it to help the soil? What are the crops that are
mm,
planted among the
it's a great
cherries?
question. I mean, there's, I do classes for cafe imports, and there's a big portion of one class that kind of talks about different systems, right? We know shaded versus unshaded, and it's a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
There's like kind of four archetypal shaded systems, and then unshaded, or just full sun, is full sun. You don't have anything there, right? Um, and so, um, I mean, full shaded would be basically you're growing coffee amongst just the native forest. Whatever vegetation is there naturally, it's there, right? And you can get more intentional with that, right? If there is a certain tree or number of trees that are very good for the ecosystem that just grow there, animals like it, that helps the soil, right? Because that's just trees taking in carbon dioxide and giving it to the soil. Then you get animals, you get leaves dropping, all of that adding organic matter to the soil, right, which helps keeps the soil healthy. And then it depends on which country you're in, but like I've seen avocados, I've seen beans, anything that are kind of like nitrogen giving to the soil, right? If you let that
The
fruit or
beans are
whatever.
big. Yeah.
And then, a big practice we see is, some things can be sold to local markets and then some things can be sold to larger markets. So kind of, maximizing profit in that way. Like, what am I growing for subsistence, local market, and then greater markets? And then, making compost is very common now. Using, water left over from processing and combining stuff that is on the farm to grow a bunch of microbes and then going and treating the soil with those microbes. So it's more of a cycle of like adding organic matter so that the microbes can break down that organic matter and create nutrients within the soil. Then those nutrients get used by the coffee. So we need to keep that cycle going. Right. So intercropping, polyculture, shade, indigenous plants, like that's the big thing you are starting to see more and more and more of.
And again, may not be freight trade or organic. This might be a great farm.
Right. Yeah. And that's where you see like a new certification is regenerative organic, right? That's regenerative agriculture. It makes sense. Like, why does the climate change in areas? Well, maybe if you completely destroy the natural ecosystem that was there, it's going to change, right? And so restoring the ecosystem that's been there for millennia is probably a way to regenerate it, and that's what you see.
Is regenerative a stamp, or is just a personal preference of the farmer?
No, I think it's a new stamp, but it's kind of also a new hot word that's just kind of come about in terms of like a farming system. But there is now a certification for it that we've been looking into. Bird friendly is very similar kind of requirements. Like the Smithsonian comes out to your farm and looks at how much percentage of canopy you've got and what birds are there, and it's cool.
Yeah.
And no pellet guns allowed. Yeah. Why'd you laugh, Dylan?
No pellet.
Sorry.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those insights. Like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of unknowns. I feel like when it comes to coffee, when we're just getting used to, or we've been used to, go to the coffee shop or go to the grocery store and grab a bag of coffee. Well, there's a lot that went into that bag. And I wanted to have you on just to share a little more about what it takes to get from seed to where you're drinking it, right? Seed to cup. And there's a lot that goes in. And so, especially right now with the market being the way it is and prices being a little higher, it's okay to pay a couple dollars more, because when you're working with a good importer and they're working directly with the farmers, it's literally helping to change lives. And the coffee's great. The coffee's a good coffee.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I enjoyed being on. I appreciate it. Do you mind if I plug coffee classes if you really want to learn some more stuff?
Yeah. And we might have to end up having a chat about making a trip somewhere too.
Oh yeah, we absolutely should. You should let us know. Be happy to take you
Kona.
Yeah, go source coffee in Jamaica. There you go. Hawaii.
Yeah. There you
go. No, if you want to learn more about the coffee production, like the whole supply chain from us, that's like what I do. I make classes about that. So you can go to cafeimports.com, go to education tab. It's called ED&U is the program. And I teach classes live monthly, or you can watch pre-recorded classes. You can download all the content, but it's just step-by-step going through the supply chain and kind of getting into a little in depth into like what is actually going on at each point within the supply chain and all the intricacy differences you'll see from place to place. Because coffee is just one of those things until you see it firsthand. You can't really be explained exactly what it
Mhm.
is, the nuance between the steps, right? But once you're there, then you always get it.
Awesome.
And then a dumb question for you: if we did promote it, can we tell our consumers as well,
Please,
not just
it's
the?
everybody.
It's for anybody can do
It's
it,
for
right? Okay,
everybody.
it's not just for
It's open
roasters.
source.
Yeah.
Everything cited. Go read the articles or wherever
Yeah.
I got all the information, and yeah.
And everyone that goes, you give us $1, right? You said.
Yeah, exactly. It all goes to
Yeah,
Spearfish.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dylan. Thanks for being
Of
on.
course. Thanks for having me, guys. It was fun.
It was fun.
All right, we'll be on next time. Thanks, guys.